Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay, but more about them a little bit later on, because right now we've got, again, nobody special. Same as last time, I'm going through sort of a hellish week, or set of weeks, month, I don't know, a little while. And this podcast might be a little bit more broken up because I am on the verge of losing my voice. I have been spending more time in the classroom teaching, which means that I've been spending more time projecting to the back of the room, which means my voice is wrecked. So I'm going to do my best here, but you know, if the audio seems a bit disjointed, it's because I have to pause and cough or cut things together or even record on multiple days. I am recording this a little bit in advance to give myself time if I can't finish it. So, what do I have for the podcast today? Well, I had a suggestion come through from Adam Bryant, who is a YouTuber himself. I do believe he has YouTube videos. I usually get these things wrong at the last minute, so my apologies if I did. But he suggested that I make this the Magpie episode. Essentially, talk about the things that are shiny and that are capturing my attention. And I think that's a really good idea on the heels of the AliExpress episode last week, which some of you went and used the affiliate links for. Thank you very much for that. I think I made about $4, $5 US, something like that. So it's not nothing, which is pretty good. And one of the nice things is that this kind of income comes in slowly over time. So, you know, $4 or $5 here and there is always appreciated. It's actually more, like if I get $4 or $5 a month from it, it's more than my cheapest Patreon tier. So there we go. So where are we going with this Magpie episode? Well, I've been doing some thinking, and I think the number one thing right now that is shiny and capturing my attention, and that's probably because of the live streams I'm doing, is the ideal soldering microscope. Now, maybe not ideal, actually. Ideal might be the wrong word, because the ideal soldering microscope would be something like Dave Jones has, the Tegano microscope. Those are prohibitively expensive for someone who doesn't make money off their soldering and their repairs and whatever. And so maybe that's not the ideal one for me, but all of the ones that I was sent by sponsors, they all work fantastically if you are a person wanting to get a closer look at your soldering as you're doing it or inspecting boards or whatever. Where it starts to fall apart is when you're a content creator, because all of these microscopes are digital. So they have, you know, single lens and it's focusable, and then they have a screen on them. Or if you want, you can, use HDMI or USB to get the video onto your computer. So that works too. That's something that's valid to do. Or you can put an SD card in and record photos or videos directly onto the screen. Again, fantastic. In fact, my Adonstar works absolutely great. I've got another one too. I think it's an Anlove. It also works phenomenal. However, when it comes to content creation, these microscopes have one big thing that bothered me so much, and that is the fact that the HDMI output from the screens turns off the screen. That means I can capture video on my capture card. I can send it to the stream to look at. But unless the monitor that is showing my stream to my viewers is where the monitor is on the microscope, I can't do much with it. I can't do it live. So I have to always have my head shifted towards my computer while I manipulate things underneath if I want my audience to see it. So the solution to this, and I'm going to put some affiliate links down in the description. Maybe you can, buy the microscope of my dreams. But it's a couple $100 for sure, but I think what I came up with would be the ideal solution for me. So how does it start? Well, it starts with a sturdy arm. So I have here a listing for a whole bunch of arms, and these things look like they came from a computer monitor. They look a lot like a desk monitor arm, like a monitor arm that you would mount on your desk. They have a few options, like you can screw it into the desk, or there's a C-clamp. I don't know if the C-clamp would be strong enough to hold a microscope in orientation without bouncing around too much. But the arms range from $60 to $100 on AliExpress, something like that. And that's where I would start. So start with that. Next thing is I would get a camera. Now, I have a camera in stock here that Banggood sent me a long time ago, and I think would be perfect for this. So a camera. Now, as long as the camera has HDMI, it can have whatever else for features. Like I don't really care. It just needs HDMI because that is part of my plan. So the next step after that is to get a splitter. So an HDMI splitter. These are really inexpensive. I didn't realize how inexpensive. I've got one here that I think it takes one in and splits it out to 4 or something like that. So I bought that specifically for this sort of intent. And the goal is that the HDMI from the camera is going to go into the splitter and then off to my capture card. So it can be shown to my stream, or I can record, video from that. But while I'm using it, I still need a way to see. And so this next thing is to add a 1080p portable monitor. So they make these monitors that mount onto like a VESA mount, or they have like a sort of like a tablet thing that kind of makes a foot to hold them up. But they're basically battery powered monitors, and they take an HDMI in, and they have a full 1080p resolution, and they're relatively small. I wish they were a bit smaller, but the 13.3 inch is not too bad, and that's for 80 Canadian dollars. All these prices are in Canadian dollars. So for the camera, it's about $100. For the arm, it's about $100. For the screen, it's about $100. And I have an HDMI splitter here for $5. And then a little bit of 3D printing to make the mount and stuff. And you still need a lens for the camera. I think these cameras come without lenses, but they can be found with lenses on other. I mean, if you just go microscope camera, I'm going to do that right now. If I type in microscope camera, I should be able to find some cameras with lenses. Yeah, so it's about $100 with a really bad microscope arm included. If you're shopping around, you might be able to find like a decent quality arm with the microscope itself and just no screen, and then add a screen and an HDMI splitter. But I think this is the best of all worlds, because you're going to be able to have a fairly large screen mounted to, sturdily to an arm. You're going to have all the focusing that you're going to need. You're going to have a lot of working space, because when it has a focusable lens, you have a lot of like Z height essentially, so you can solder underneath it. And then it'll project onto a nice IPS display. The IPS display should be nice and clear so that you can see very well. In fact, some of them even come with a ring light, so that's pretty cool as well. And then you get to send it off to your computer, and then you can record infinitely without having to worry about SD card space or SD card corruption or whatever. And for me, as a live streamer who live streams quite a bit, at least a couple times per week, that means that I can show my audience what is going on, and I can see directly underneath it as well. So I think that is the proper solution. Now, if you tell me though that I can get something like the Tegano for, $300-400, let me know where, because that would be the ideal. I do see that AliExpress has trinocular microscopes, but it's usually around the $400 to $500 range, and they're not even the high quality ones like the Tegano. And my fear is that because I wear glasses, I may not be able to put my eyes in those eye cups and see properly. And I know that it's not the same thing, right? I know that they are stereo, whereas a camera-based microscope is just sort of mono. You can only see in one plane. You don't have that 3D vision. But still, I don't know if for my use case, a trinocular microscope that isn't high quality, like really high quality, like the Tegano, for example, I don't think that's the correct solution for me. So let me know what you think about this microscope setup. And could I improve that somehow? Not sure. When I was thinking up of things for this list, I thought for sure there'd be a 3D printer on the list, but there just isn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. Voron 2.4 would be amazing to build, and I still, think about it all the time that I might end up buying one at some point. However, I'm kind of more excited about seeing what is to come. Like, I'm not sure that the Voron 2.4, by the time I'm done building it, will be the bee's knees anymore. I mean, it might be. It might still be dominant for a long time, but if you look at things like the Bamboo Labs X1C, I mean, that's roughly the same price. It's not the same price, but it's close to the same price as a Voron 2.4, especially if you get a Voron 2.4 from a, like an LDO kit, a high quality kit. And I think that the Bamboo Labs is overall a better experience, except for the fact that I really don't like that it's closed source. That's like really bothering me because there have been a bunch of people who've had problems with their Bamboo Labs, and when they're out of warranty, they're really hard to fix because it's all done in software with automatic tuning and stuff. And I feel like a lot of that is done at the moment of assembly and not quite. You can't really like adjust it live. And one example of that is Sion, the Unexpected Maker. He has a Bamboo Labs. I don't know if it's the P1S or the X1C, but either way, he uses it for work. It's mostly a business printer, and he had an issue that I think some sensors went awry. And he had to open up the machine and replace the sensors. And he says that since then, the printer has never been the same. And so that kind of worries me because a Voron, you kind of have this thing where people have kind of done everything to them. You can find a solution somewhere. There are Voron experts that have built dozens of them. And there are people who have helped hundreds of people with their Vorons and any problem under the sun. Whereas with the Bamboo Labs, it's really a closed system. So I'm sort of, on 3D printers, I'm sort of sitting here, kind of sitting on my hands and waiting to see what the next greatest thing is. Because if you think of the leap between sort of like a Mark IV Prusa and a X1C Bamboo Labs, that's a huge jump forward. I'm not convinced that there's a large jump forward to come in 3D printing anytime soon. That was probably what the I don't remember the name of that, but the 3D printer that Scotty and a whole bunch of people, but Scotty from Strange Parts got, that does the fused nylon powder sintering printing. That was supposed to be another leap forward, but it looks like that project's probably dead now since they got bought out by Formbot? I don't remember who. But regardless, I'm kind of like sitting here and waiting to see what happens. I've got a couple printers here already. I've got a Voron V0 that I haven't had the chance to tune up. Don't forget, it's like 6,000 degrees Celsius outside, so I'm not in a hurry to run a heat bed, but all winter I will be. And so I've got stuff to tinker with. I've got a Tronxy X5SA that I really want to turn into a VZ bot because those are really nice printers. But the thing is that it's kind of expensive to do the swap. Like, it's almost the price of a P1S or whatever Bamboo Labs. So we'll have to see what happens. I might end up doing something like that. But 3D printers are really not on the Magpie list. What's on the Magpie list would be more like a Milo. The idea of an open source CNC machine like that is just, it tickles me in just the right ways. And to talk to the creator of the Milo project and one of the contributors was phenomenal as well. It just made me want it even more. I have to contend with the fact that I probably don't have enough space for a Milo mill, but still, that thing would be pretty sweet. And making parts out of aluminum is probably the next step for me anyways, because I am just going to enter into ABS this winter with the Voron V0. And, you know, when it's not so freaking hot outside where I'm fighting my AC to 3D print stuff. But I just think that aluminum is the natural progression after that. It's just, it does get a lot harder. I do have a 3018 sort of desktop mill to play with. So expect to see that at some point in the future, probably on the live stream. But yeah. I find it pretty interesting, to say the least, that 3D printing is sort of slowed down. The innovation has slowed down. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe I just haven't caught up with it. But the mill side is super interesting stuff. You know, one machine that isn't a mill or a 3D printer that might be on the Magpie list would probably be a laser cutter. I find that pretty interesting that a few years ago, probably 3-4 years ago, actually probably more, COVID has really, stretched time for me, or squeeze time. I don't know, whatever. It's late. I think all those years ago, either way, the cheapest place to get a laser cutter, and I mean a real CO2 laser, not a diode laser. Diode lasers definitely have their place, but the fact that you can't cut certain materials because they're transparent to the laser and it's more materials than you think is kind of a bummer. But so I'm talking about like the K40 lasers, the basic lasers. The cheapest place to get them before used to be, for me, eBay, because there were sellers in Toronto, which are not that far, maybe 450 kilometers away from me, that would stock these lasers. And so you can get them for like $600. And that was not too bad, actually. That's pretty reasonable. I haven't bought one because it wasn't, although it's reasonable, it's definitely not cheap. If I check now, the same, I don't know if it's the same sellers, but it looks like the same listings, they go for like $700. But now, however, you can get them on Amazon. So Amazon.ca has it listed, a VVOR, which is not really a VVOR. VVOR is one of those companies that just slaps their label on kind of whatever. But a VVOR K40 laser is $530. And the shipping is pretty quick. It looks like, 1 to 2 weeks delivery for that. And so that's a reasonable price. And every time I bring it up to like another maker, the subject, the fact that there could be a laser heading towards me, he just cannot help himself. He says, do it, do it, do it. He's like, I've never, ever regretted buying a laser. So he's really pro laser. But the thing is, I think at the moment, I would just like a laser. I don't think I need a laser. I still have 3D printer brain, right? When I see a problem, I see a solution that is 3D printed. Whereas when another maker sees a problem, he often sees a solution that is laser cut. So I don't think I have the correct brain right now to pick up a laser and put it into my tool repertoire. But damn, would it ever be cool to play with? Maybe one day I can get a Vivor sponsorship or something, and then I'll gladly play with it. But the problem with me is everything turns into a slippery slope, right? Because this K40 laser is 30 by 20 centimeters, so 12 inches by 8 inches. As soon as I get it on my workbench here, there's going to be something that I want to do that requires 9 inches and not 8, or 13 inches in the other dimension. Or I need like a ring roller or something, like something to spin I don't know. I just know that because I know myself well enough, if I buy sort of like the entry level of a product, it won't be long until I'm going to be looking for a standalone, not a benchtop, but like a huge working area, 120, watt CO2 laser. And lasers is a weird thing because you can buy, I can buy the full laser cutter for $530. But if I go on AliExpress and I just look for the 40 watt laser tube, it's going to be expensive. Actually, it's not that bad. Ooh, I haven't looked this up for a while. So it looks like I can get one for $150. That is not too bad. Let's see how much a 100 watt laser, CO2 laser tube. Oh, this might be dangerous here. Okay, yeah. So if I want a 100 watt laser, so a big boy, that's going to be like $500. So that's well out of my price range. Okay, I feel safe now. I'm probably not in danger of buying a laser and making my own laser cutter a la William Osman anytime soon. But you see how my brain works? Like immediately, I don't even have the damn laser, and I'm already looking for something bigger. That's me, really making the Magpie title of this podcast work. I suppose as long as we are talking about things that are way out of my price range, like, building a 100 watt laser, how about some e-propulsion for a boat motor? I mean, this is a this is a thing that I've had on my mind for a very long time, ever since I, laid eyes on lithium iron phosphate cells, which, by the way, are still here and still need to be worked on. So that's another story for a different day, though. I've wanted to make an electric-powered boat. I think some of you might already know this because I've been talking about it enough. However, there's, my idea was a DIY idea, whereas it seems like since then there's been an explosion of commercial solutions for that. Now, I would love a commercial solution just for the fact that it's already built and I can enjoy it and go fishing and whatever. But on the inside, I really want to mess with big ass motors and put them on, irresponsible things, like, for example, gutting an outboard motor and replacing the power head with a 10 kilowatt brushless DC motor. That would be amazing. But just looking at the prices now I've been getting, the inspiration for these specific motors from the Digital Mermaid. If you've been on her YouTube channel, there is she bought a 5 kilowatt and a 10 kilowatt motor, and the 5 kilowatt with liquid cooling is 830 Canadian dollars, and the 5 kilowatts just air cooled is $785. The 10 kilowatts, which let me just do the math here. So 10,000 divided by 747, I think that's close enough. That's 13 horsepower equivalent. It is between $1,300 and $1,600 for just the motor. Then you need the speed controller, which is $1,000 for a 10 kilowatts and $750 for a 5 kilowatt. Then you need the throttle. Like, this is absolutely nuts how expensive this stuff is. And you don't have the efficiency of a pre-built solution because your motor is up top over the water line. And so you have to transfer that motion across a 90-degree gearbox. And so the pre-made solutions, although more expensive, expensive, are more efficient because they make the motor, in the foot under the water. So it gets cooled easier, and you get more efficiency because you're not running it through a gearbox. But just an example of this, Golden Motor, so very much a Chinese company, they make a 10 horsepower outboard motor for 4,801 Canadian dollars, or the 5 horsepower for 4,147 Canadian dollars. And then you have to, get a 48 volt battery pack. So they sell a 48 volt, 50 amp hour battery pack for $2,000, $6,000. By the time you're out the door, plus taxes and all this stuff, it's a super expensive thing. Like, boats are just ridiculous in terms of cost. And I understand it's because it's not like cars. Everyone has a car type thing. So you've got those, the scale, the scale factor means that prices come down. And also, nobody needs a boat. Everyone needs a car in North America. For those of you in Europe, yes, you're correct. It is possible to live without a car, but it's much harder here in North America. So, yeah, I understand it's super high cost, but there's got to be some way, right? There's got to be some way to wind your own motors or whatever. Like, I know I've been dreaming of converting a alternator for a little while. You can take a car alternator and convert it into a brushless motor. And that has been on the wish list for a while, but it's just, it's not the same. I mean, it'll be fun to try, but it is not the same as, grabbing a pre-made motor made specifically for the task and putting it to task, because it's insane how much torque you get from a well-built motor. Like, the tolerances between the rotor and the between the rotor and the stator are like a hair, right? It's like almost nothing to get the most power out of them. And then you've got nice big aluminum casings to cool them down. You've got water loops. You've got all sorts of stuff made specifically that you don't have to mess with, when you're compared to when you're doing it DIY. But I mean, DIY is where the fun is. But we're talking about Magpie stuff today. All right, let me see if I can think of one more thing before I have to give up for the night. The podcast won't be over. I just have to give up because it's getting late and my voice is getting worse and worse. I don't know if you can hear it over on your end, but I think the next thing that is my sort of like shiny thing that captures my attention, that I keep looking at every time AliExpress or eBay or Amazon has a sale, is a combined soldering station. So the way I have my setup here is I have my soldering iron and I have my hot air reflow, but it seems like more and more those two go together. I tend to solder stuff and then put heat shrink over, and so I use both my devices, the iron and the hot air, at the same time. And I'm getting to a point where I have quite a bit of gear set up between, the test gear and the soldering gear and the lights and all this stuff, especially for live streaming. So I'm at the point where I'm running out of plugs, and honestly, I'm also running out of desk space. So I'd really like to combine the soldering iron and the hot air station, and preferably with a desoldering station as well, like the suction desoldering gun, all in one. But you know how expensive that is? Like a decent soldering iron is really not that much. I think I paid $60 for mine. And a decent hot air rework station was also like $60. And a desoldering gun is another like $60. It's really not that expensive. But all the units I see with all three of those integrated, they're like $500. Like, let me just I'll try to find one right now on Amazon, but typically when I look on AliExpress, it's like very much like $500. So okay, so here I'm looking at a unit, the Yihua 948. That's a desoldering station and soldering iron, so it doesn't have the hot air on it, and it is $311 Canadian on Amazon. If I see the Yihua 853D, it has the hot air and the soldering iron, but no desoldering gun. $230. Again, more expensive than individually the two items. Another one, Mypuos. I don't know. I think these are just made up names. A 2-in-1, same thing, only the hot air and the soldering iron. $69.99 Canadian. Not a bad price, but I would ideally like all three of them, and it's not really a good sale price. So I'm kind of holding out here because I have a soldering iron that I love, and my hot air gun works just fine. So I'm not in a hurry to replace them, but I just wish something would, fall under my nose and it be the right item. If you guys know of something that I should be keeping an eye on, like a specific name brand or type or model number with all three of those things that often rotates in and out of sales, let me know in the comments below, because I think this year, if I do end up buying more gear, I think it would be that, and it would just be to refine my processes. I think I have everything I need at the moment, and now it's just like sort of refining. Looking quickly still, I don't see anything on Amazon. They definitely have them on AliExpress, but it's like definitely up there in price. Like the Yihua 982D, that's like desoldering tweezers and 2 soldering irons and stuff. That's like $600. And I'm looking at a rework station. Oh, that's not too bad. The WEP, W-E-P, 9482 rework station. It is $350. So, yeah, if AliExpress had a sale on something like that, I probably would pick that up. I think it would make for a pretty cool tool, and it would remove a little bit of the clutter on my desk. So yeah, it does seem like they're a little bit more reasonable than I thought. They seem to be in the $350 range, but that's kind of pricey. But you know what's not pricey? PCBWay. So as a lot of you know, PCBWay has been a long-term sponsor. They support the channel essentially, and tons of other channels when the ad revenue just doesn't add up for a niche market like us. And so if you want PCBs, if you're interested in making PCBs, I've got a couple of videos on how you could do that. You can head over on the link in the description and visit PCBWay.com. So 10 PCBs under 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters will cost you $5 plus shipping. If you are not in a hurry, the shipping is quite reasonable. They typically take like 1 to 2, sometimes 3 days to build the PCBs and ship it out to you. And then after that, it's all up to the shipping method, how fast you get your PCBs. If you're in a hurry, DHL to Canada is only like 3-4 days, that type of thing. And if you are more patient, you can take the slow boat route, and that's usually about 2 to 3 weeks these days in shipping. if you're not interested in PCBs, and not everyone is, then you can always just go on somewhere like Printables or Thingiverse and find a cool 3D model and send it to them to 3D print. And even if you have your own 3D printer, they can also do SLS and SLA, and also they can do CNC, which is really freaking cool. So check out PCBWay.com at the link in the description and help support the company that supports makers. Now back to the show. All right, where was I? Time for a little bit of honesty. After that ad read, it's now been 2 days, and my voice is recovered a little bit, which is great. However, it is 10 p.m. on the day that I'm supposed to release this for early access. So let's get on with it, shall we? So, as far as shiny things are concerned, well, I actually took delivery of something quite shiny today. So I bought a Steam Deck. And for those who don't know what a Steam Deck is, it's essentially a full laptop. It's like a full-fledged laptop with a AMD Ryzen processor with integrated graphics. However, it is in the form factor of a handheld gaming console. Now, since it came out a couple of years ago, I've wanted one of these because I thought they were just nifty, but the problem is they were quite expensive. I don't know if I actually talked about this earlier in the episode. I sure hope I didn't. But anyways, so the price for the cheapest Steam Deck at the moment is it's $500 Canadian, essentially. So that gives you a 256 gig model. So that's the internal storage. Everything else is kind of the same on the Steam Deck, except they now have a OLED version that has an updated, Wi-Fi 6E instead of 5. The battery is a little bit bigger, and the screen is a little bit bigger and nicer overall, and HDR. So that's pretty cool. But regardless, the cheap model is $500, and I just thought for $500 Canadian, that's a bit much for what I would use it for. I would use it so that I can, relax, because I find myself often at my computer, and when I'm at my computer, I'm working, essentially. I am either researching the next topic for the podcast, or I am watching electronics videos to get inspiration, or I'm working on something in Fusion, or I'm streaming, or whatever. So in order to get up and away from the computer, the Steam Deck was the idea, right? But $500 is a lot for that. However, the old models of the Steam Deck are also available for a little bit cheaper. So the non-refreshed 64 gig eMMC version of the Steam Deck is on sale. So it's $440. Now, the only difference between that and the 256 gig model is that the 256 gig model is a solid state drive. The eMMC model has, well, first of all, half the storage, a quarter of the storage, I should say. But on top of that, it's much slower eMMC storage. So not quite as good. But the beauty is that eMMC storage is slotted into the NVMe slot where you would put a solid state drive in the Steam Deck. So you can buy this $440 one and then put in a much larger SSD or just an actual SSD for a lot cheaper. And then you have kind of the slightly higher end model. So that's all well and good. But I still thought that $440 was a bit much again for me. So then they released certified refurbished. So usually refurbished stuff means that, it's a defective unit that was repaired by a third party and then tested by a third party and then sold, and then usually have like a short warranty on those kinds of things. So your warranty would probably be like 30 days and probably like exchange only, no like return policy per se. But Valve is the company who makes the Steam Deck. They have their own refurbished products. So they're now offering the 64 gig eMMC version, refurbished, so essentially a customer return that goes through rigorous checks, and they want $350 Canadian for them. And I thought that's good enough to pull the trigger, because I bought myself a retro gaming system not too long ago, and it was $100. And it's good and all, but it has flaws. It doesn't have a real operating system. It uses like an open source cut down Linux type thing, because it's essentially like a Raspberry Pi inside. It's not super powerful. The graphics is not super great, and etc. But the Steam Deck has like a full-fledged AMD APU that runs full-fledged Linux. It runs a modified version of Arch Linux, but you can run just pure Arch Linux on it, or you can run Windows on it if you want as well. So I figured for $350, hopefully I make a little bit of content on it, probably for the second channel. I might make a main channel video, because Pile of Stuff actually suggested a video idea to me, and I think I might go for it. So we'll see how that works. But yeah, it just arrived today, and I wish I had more time to play with it, but I really don't, because I have to finish this podcast and edit it and then post it and then head to bed. I will, however, share my initial thoughts. So first things first, when reading the fine print on the certified refurbished program, they do say that there is a chance of scratches, scuffs, blemishes, sort of like normal handling artifacts. So they state that they are returned units, they're used units. So, little scratches and stuff, cosmetic damage is normal. Except for on the screen. I'm guessing if there's scratches on the screen, they replace the screen, because they said it's not acceptable to have scratches on the screen. So I was a little concerned, because I was like, what if I just get a bad one? What if they send me one that's, that was owned by someone's 10-year-old child or something? But I mean, that's the risk you take, right? And it's a risk I was willing to take, because instead of getting like a diminished warranty on because it's a refurbished item, it carries the full 1-year warranty of the Steam Deck. And on top of that, the Steam Deck has a very high repairability score on iFixit's website, which is very important to me. And there's all sorts of like shells available, like modified shells for better cooling, for adding a kickstand to it. There are Hall Effect joysticks you can add to it. By the way, the retro console I bought has little like Nintendo Switch style tiny little joysticks, whereas the Steam Deck has full size like Xbox controller style joysticks. So that's pretty nice. So anyways, I opened my Steam Deck and I did it on camera. I wanted to record my first impressions. And lo and behold, there is like 1, maybe 2 scratches, but they are tiny. And I'm curious to put it underneath the microscope, because first of all, they're not in an area that you would see normally, which is good. There's one just above the left-hand trigger, and there's one just like where the right-hand sort of palm goes. And I think that's it. The one on the palm, I'm not sure if it's like a scuff or something, whatever. But it almost seems like they colored it in black. This is an old trick that I used to do working in my dealership days. If you accidentally scratch a piece of plastic where a customer probably won't notice, like somewhere down low, like a door panel or something, or somewhere around where your feet go, the scratch will usually leave a nice white mark on a black piece of trim. So my trick was, you take a Sharpie and you go over the scratch, and very quickly, while the Sharpie is still wet, you lick your finger and then you try to clean off the Sharpie. And the Sharpie will stay in the scratch, but it'll clean off the surface, because if not, it's not a matching black, essentially. So if you do that, most of the time customers won't notice ever that you scratch their trim panel. If it's somewhere down low where they're not going to notice anyway, I just like to do the extra step. If it's somewhere up high, forget about it. You have to replace the panel. Like, you have to eat the cost. But if it's somewhere like by the feet where a customer already has scratches, but you added one, that's how you can fix it. But it looks almost like they did that to the Steam Deck. Like they added just a little bit of, black marker to hide the scratch a little bit. Pretty interesting. So anyways, take out the Steam Deck and it looks almost new. Like I don't know what to say, but it's almost brand new. It feels really good. It's very clean. No like fingerprints or anything all over them. So that was nice to see. And I was actually impressed by the build quality. I mean, the thing is fairly large. I think it has like a 7 point something inch screen diagonally. And so it's kind of a big device. It's a little weird too, because underneath the sticks, it has like 2 touchpads that you use to emulate the mouse, which is I'm really not used to that. It doesn't have a HD screen. The screen is 1280 by 800, so resolution is a little bit low. But this is like first generation of this kind of product for Steam. I'm not sure if they're going to do a Steam Deck 2, because apparently so many games are compatible with it already that it's probably not worth it to make a 2 just yet until there's a big generational leap. So I installed a couple games, Project Zomboid. I installed Stardew Valley. Started installing some emulators because I want to see how well it works. But the Switch emulator, Yuzu, was shut down by a Nintendo lawsuit not too long ago. So I'll be on the lookout for a replacement for that. Other things that I'm excited about for the Steam Deck is messing around in Linux for the first time. I do not have a Linux system. So having an Arch Linux thing to play with is pretty interesting. So I went into the desktop mode, so you can switch between the SteamOS big picture mode and the desktop mode. Open the package manager, and I don't remember what it's called. Discover or something? I don't know. And then I found that one of the most popular installs was Space Cadet Table. Who remembers Space Cadet Table? It's the old pinball game they used to ship with like Windows 95 and 98. So I installed that, and there's a little bit of a weird mapping of the controls to, from Steam Deck control to keyboard controls. And I found there was a couple bugs. Like sometimes I couldn't get the on-screen keyboard to show up. I don't know if Linux is quite as stable as people say, because Steam is a fairly large company, and so they have a fairly good team, like a fairly sizable team working on SteamOS and ensuring its compatibility with the Steam Deck. And it's been out for a couple of years now, and still there are some kinks. Like there's some weird bugs that you don't find in Windows, like having the on-screen keyboard come up. Also, Samba sharing. So I have a media center computer, which is essentially my old computer, which becomes the home theater computer. And it is set to not require any permissions whatsoever in order to share files. So you can install fresh Windows, right? And Windows is not an easy. It's not an operating system that has everything figured out. You still have to do quite a bit of grunt work. But I have my share set up that even a brand new install of Windows, it'll just install, and then you can go and pick up files from my share. Well, for whatever reason, the Steam Deck cannot access that network share, even though it's on the same network. And I keep getting told that networking and file sharing is way easier on Linux, but that doesn't seem to be my experience right now. Another one of my initial observations on the Steam Deck is that it really only has one port available to use. 2 ports. So it has a headphone jack, which I'm not sure. I think it's a combined headphone and microphone jack. Have to look that up because I didn't read the documentation yet. But there's also only one USB port, and that's the USB-C port. So to me, that means that if you want to charge the device, which charges USB-C, you can't have it plugged into anything. So you can't have any like USB peripheral, like say a game controller or anything like that. And you can also not connect it to a TV. I mean, you might be able to do a USB to HDMI adapter, but you'd have to get one with a charge port if you want to plug it into your TV. There's no HDMI. There's only one USB-C and one headphone jack. I think that's a little bit of an oversight. If the Steam Deck is positioned as a desktop replacement gaming machine, I mean, who thinks gaming and doesn't think, USB peripherals? If you want to plug a keyboard and mouse onto this thing to use it in desktop mode, which you totally can, you need a dock. You need a hub, and that hub better have USB power delivery pass through, because if not, you can't use a keyboard or a mouse and charge it, right? Or then a keyboard and a mouse and charge it. So that part is a little bit strange to me. Now, I do know that Steam does, streaming, so you can turn on your computer and stream your game directly from your PC to the screen on the Steam Deck. And sure, that might be an option, but it's not quite the same as giving me more ports. Like that AMD processor in the Steam Deck has a whole bunch of connectivity. I know it's got a whole bunch of PCIe lanes, and I know that even Apple gives you more than one USB-C connection these days. So Steam, where's our USB? I want USB. So yeah, expect to see some sort of, not a review video, but like a first impressions, first shakedown type video about the Steam Deck at some point soon. I don't want to give away the awesome idea that Pile of Stuff had for the Steam Deck. So maybe you guys can let me know in the comment section what you think a good video idea would be for the Steam Deck. I'm very likely, now that I'm done my college contract officially, probably for the entire summer, possibly for the rest of the year completely, I'm planning on sort of shotgunning a whole bunch of quick looks, tool tips, those kinds of videos, probably for the second channel, SE Condary. And those are just to sort of get some videos that might get some algorithm traction and might help some people find some stuff over on the second channel, because I'm hoping one day to monetize it. Not that it'll bring that much money, but it's all things that I've been wanting to do. And I think if I just film a whole bunch of short videos, then when I have 15, 20 minutes here and there, I can slap them together, edit them together, and make like either shorts or short videos or both. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, for your 350 Canadian pesos for the Steam Deck, I also got expedited shipping through FedEx, so from the States. So that's like at least 20 to 30 bucks, and it only took like 2 days to get here. And it also comes with a carrying case, and it comes with a high wattage and high voltage sort of PD charger. So it plugs into the wall, does not have a replaceable cable. That's a little bit sad, but plugs into the wall and has, I think, up to 20 volts, 2.5 amps of output. So, I mean, that charger alone, I think I paid, well, for my high quality one, I paid 60 bucks, close to 60 bucks for my PD charger. And for the lower quality one, I paid over 30 bucks. So there's a lot of value there for $350. I don't really know how much profit they're making when you consider that they need a technician to take back these returned items, inspect them, put them through, like basically they have to make sure everything works, inspect them, repackage them, relist them, send them back to the logistics company, and then sell it back to customers. It's a hell of a deal for 350 bucks. So essentially, that's kind of it for the shiny stuff for the Magpie episode. Like, I'm trying to think of stuff that really catch my eye and that are really, stuff on the wish list, but there's really nothing, small to medium anymore that I really need and or want. Like if I think about it, sure, more test gear would be great, but is it really worth it for what I do to just keep adding digits to a multimeter, keep adding bandwidth to an oscilloscope? I mean, at some point, I'm going to run into a limit, but probably not at this rate. Like I'd really have to step up my game to really, use the tools to their max, like to find a use case to use the tools to their max. At the moment, what I'm more focusing on is how to make my content better and easier to film and more fun to stream, essentially. Those are the kind of things that I'm looking at. And being honest, aside from the things that we talked about today, excluding the Steam Deck, really there's no other piece of gear that would sort of make that any better, except for the stuff I talked about. Sure, I can get something like a cable lug crimper, but I'll use it once or twice, and then it'll just take up space down here. I mean, I guess the biggest thing that I would have my eye on would be to make a move, would be to move to a property that has a lot of space and, an outbuilding to do the podcast and to the YouTube channel from. But I mean, that's more than, a shiny thing capturing my attention. Here in Ottawa, a property like that would be like 800,000 to, plus. And that's just not in the cards. Our little $300,000 home is pretty much as we can afford. So if I'm thinking realistically, I think that's pretty much peaked. I mean, if you think there's something in the, let's say, sub $3,000 range that I should be looking at to improve my YouTube channel, or just that could be fun to buy, to make videos with or whatever, let me know in the comments section, because I really can't think of it. Like maybe like a Bamboo Labs 3D printer or the Voron 2.4 or stuff like that, but they would just allow me to do what I'm already doing at a higher capacity. Like the Bamboo Labs would allow me to print ABS, which I should be able to now when I tune the Voron V0, but print ABS and print it quickly. And that's the same thing with the Voron 2.4. And at the moment, I can already print things, and the requirement for ABS is not super important to me because I can just print in PLA and print more. I was kind of upset at the video quality coming out of the camera for a little while, so I bought a used Nikon camera, but it was a huge upgrade, so I'm pretty happy about that. My editing PC could always use a refresh, but at the moment it's still functioning just fine, so don't need that. I bought an office chair this year that I can actually sit on without hurting my back like crazy. Again, if you look in the used market, they're really not that bad, so that's good. I've got 2 monitors for my computer already. I've bought little monitors to help my streams. Again, used market, pretty damn good for that. There's really not that much more that I can think of that's not like an astronomical purchase, like a lab, like to actually rent a building to do this in. I really can't think of anything. So yeah, if you guys can think of something, I would love to know, like, what should I aspire to? Is there anything that you think would make my life a lot better? Man, I even bought a lav mic set, a battery-powered lav mic set now for recording videos. So the audio issues should be completely gone as well. So yeah, I don't know what else. Let me know. And I hope I'll catch you in the comments section of this podcast or on the next episode. Thanks for listening.